Hi, good morning. We're here with Duncan Oates from K2 Recycle. How you doing, Duncan?
Well, thank you, Mike. How are you?
Yeah, really well. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining
Good.
us today. So if you could start things off by telling us a little bit about who you are, what it is that you do, and how long you've been doing it for, please.
My name's Duncan Oates, and my company is called K2 Recycle Limited. That business is coming up for a year old, so not very old at all. I've been working on it as a project for just over a year, and I'm basically a consultant within the waste industry, primarily focused on the plastic sector.
Cool. So in terms of what you do and how you differ from other people doing what you do, or are there other people doing what you do, what makes you stand out or unique?
I think it's important to say, and the business has evolved. Even in that year, it's changed dramatically, and I wouldn't say I've been forced into consulting, but I found myself doing something which I didn't originally expect to do. Why? Because I've 22 years experience within the plastic recycling sector, so I have a very niche set of experience, specifically within the UK market. So there are other consultants, but actually the amount of people that are available to consult with my level of expertise is limited. As I'm learning that, and that's part of the thing. It was not a conscious decision to go in this direction, but it's gone in that direction.
Something that's found you.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. Fantastic. So what's that year since you've set up doing this consultancy, what has the journey been like for you? If you could describe it.
Yeah, so the business was originally set up with the view to actually building a UK-based recycling plant. So 15 months ago, I set off developing a plan to find a site, build a facility, and actually recycle plastic flakes. That introduced me to a number of people, and quickly a number of companies, particularly overseas businesses who were looking to enter the UK market, started saying, oh, if you're available, is there any chance you could help us on this project? Could you explain this about the UK market? And that's why I say that I fell into it, because those people were pursuing my expertise whilst I was trying to pursue building that plant. And actually the consulting side has become a total distraction from the original business plan that I had. But it's very positive. I'm working with various overseas businesses that are trying to answer questions that they don't know how to answer. So, yeah.
So are you going to be sticking with the original business plan somewhere down the line?
It's still happening. The plan to build a plant has always continued gently in the background, but it's become 5% of my time, and the other 95% is spread across various businesses that I'm helping within the sector.
So in terms of the future, what that looks like for you, what would you say that is looking like, and what do you see as the biggest challenges are for growing the business?
Well, the growth is a massive issue. If you look at a typical company from a consulting perspective, people are paying for my expertise. Mm-hmm. And so I guess, and this would be the case in any consulting business, that finding other people that would be prepared to work for me or with me to consult in that same sector would be hard to identify. So being able to actually find those people to work with me would be the challenge around growth. So that's the main challenge. The other challenge that tends to be the case is that you meet various different people who, when you present yourself as a consultant, they naturally say, oh, right, that's great. We actually want to use a consultant to answer this question. Could you help? You help them, and invariably you answer one question and it creates 3 answers that they then want help on those answers. So actually the thing that I've struggled with most is managing the expectations of companies who want me to help them, because actually, and in almost all circumstances, the information that I've provided has created a situation where they want to expand further into a sector. So they might investigate the UK market, for instance, and then having understood the UK market, they then say, right, that's interesting. Can you find me a site? Can you help me recruit people? So it very quickly swells into a much, much larger task. So that it does come with its challenges. It's a flattering, good challenge to have, but it's a challenge all the same.
Sure thing. Yeah, meeting that demand with a finite resource.
That's right.
So moving on to yourself then, as a business owner, reflecting on your biggest lesson to date, if there's one that you could pick out to share, what do you think that would be?
I think it's probably about being open-minded. If you actually look at my career, but most relevantly the last 5 years, I've made a number of decisions that at the time seemed like the right thing to do, and I assumed I was going to go on a certain path, and actually the path changes and moves, and ultimately, with a little bit of age and experience, you start to get into a place where if you can become comfortable with the uncertainty, allow yourself to go in a direction that you want to go in, which is driven partly by enjoyment as well. You know, I love doing what I'm doing at the moment, so I thoroughly enjoy it, and I'm happy to be taken in whichever direction that goes in. So I'm not allowing my original plan to dictate how my business must be. And that's the open. So it's got to be fun, it's got to be enjoyable, and you've got to remain open-minded, because otherwise those doors wouldn't have opened if I'd been too rigid in my attitude.
Sure. Sounds like a lesson from experience there, of going with the flow.
I think so, yeah. I think so. And I'm still having to almost self-coach myself to be comfortable with that uncertainty. You know, there's a lot of people who are employed who wouldn't take the step to become self-employed or run their own business because of that fear that they're no longer receiving that monthly salary. But actually, if you step away from it and actually look back at a circumstance where you're employed by a business earning a salary versus employed by yourself and responsible for yourself, the risk is no different. If you do a good job for yourself, you are likely to succeed. If you do a good job within a company, you are likely to succeed. However, within a company environment, there could be circumstances beyond your control which you're unaware of, that for your own reasons you find yourself jobless, for instance. So I think that mentality is not something, you know, I've spent most of my career employed. So that step to being technically self-employed, it's my company, is a psychological step that I think a lot of people don't do because of the fear.
Sure. Great words of experience talking there, and good for you for taking that step to say the perception is often not necessarily the reality, but we do things because of perceived comfort or security. But yeah, you're right. Being at a company, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes or anything like that. That gives you that security may well not be there.
Correct. Yeah.
Cool. So, if following on from that, if you were to offer some advice to perhaps yourself at 18, just starting out, what would that advice be? Would that be similar to what you reflected on with your lesson there?
Uh, I think that I'm 42 and I've got 4 daughters. Some of those, the elder ones, are coming up to an age, they're not 18. The eldest is 14 and she's just starting a part-time job. But as a parent, and I own a separate business where we have an apprentice as well who's 18. So I frequently find myself in a circumstance where I'm trying to dispense my knowledge that I've learned through my career in the same way that I look back where my parents did it to me. And I mean, it's a bit of a holistic attitude towards it, but I don't think an 18-year-old is capable of absorbing the advice of someone who's 42 that's been through all of the challenges that they are about to go through, because once you've had a career of 20-something years, a lot of what shapes you is the experiences that you've gone through. You know, I have done jobs that I didn't like. I've done things that I was uncomfortable with. I've been way outside my comfort zone at various times within my career. So for me to say to an 18-year-old, what you need to do is be open-minded and make sure you're only doing things that you enjoy doing. You know, I have the benefit of experience and expertise, which allows me to choose which sectors I operate within. So, you know, even with what I'm doing now, I'm busy and I've got a full diary. So that has enabled me to say, thank you for your inquiry, but I'm just not interested in that sector of the market. So whilst I could help, I just don't want to. And that's a fortunate place to be in. So what advice would I give someone who's young? Strive and try hard, and yeah, I don't know. Is it relevant to an 18-year-old? That's my view.
Just have a go and start.
Well, I think because my daughters look at me and roll their eyes when I give them words of wisdom, and of course they actually say to me that I'm sure you looked at your parents like this when they told you how to do it. You know, they do have to find their own way. So I try very hard not to try and dictate the path of my children by telling them you must do it like this, because they will ultimately find their own way.
That's right.
Sorry, that was a rather long explanation. It's
there's some valid points made there. You know, ultimately we can only say shaped by their experience, but you know, the words of advice are just have a go perhaps, and it will be tricky, but you will learn, you will adapt as you go. Perhaps that's
and maybe it's the open-minded comment again, because if you actually map my career history, I'm ultimately operating within a commercial environment. So my roles have primarily been sales, procurement. It's all been commercial roles. The path has weaved, as I've said before, doors opened and I chose to walk through them or I chose to avoid them, and I've been pushed and dragged and moved into a certain sector where I now find myself with a very, you know, I'm operating within the plastic world, within recycling, right at the front end of it. So food packaging, food contact from recycled material. It's really at the sharp end of a very, very, you know, the environmental sector. It's very much a buzzword. You know, my experience therefore is very, very relevant and quite niche, really. So it's, you know, people tell me, oh, you're lucky to have had the experience that you've had. I don't believe it's luck. I believe that you create your own luck.
Yes, definitely through those experiences that you've been willing to put yourself through.
Correct, yeah.
Good stuff. So what's your why, do you think? What inspires you to do what you do? If there's any inspiration you use, your friends, family, the people you work with, the environment, all of the above. Anything you read, listen to?
What inspires me? Honestly, not really sure. I think come back to you have to enjoy what you want to do, and I'm very motivated by allowing plastics to continue to be something that is a positive thing within our world and within our lives. And of course that comes in a time where there's also a huge amount of negativity pointed around plastics in the ocean and that aspect of it. So, I'm not a staunch environmentalist, as people might imagine me to be with working in the sector that I am. But I'm inspired to see positive development ultimately within a sector that I do very much believe in. So, and actually I get the benefit of working with some very inspirational people on some very inspirational projects as well. So, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. So lastly, in terms of latest news about what you're up to, I think we've covered a bit with what you're doing. You've got a full diary already, but if the people want to know more about yourself, is there any way of getting in touch or anything like that? Feel free to share.
Yeah, I've never got around to building a website. You can by all means share my email address or details through your network. My specialism, if I haven't made that clear, is plastic recycling, primarily packaging. So bottle recycling is a huge part of what I do, and I'm very happy to help within that sector as we go along. I think the next stage of the business going forward will be a question as to whether it can expand so it becomes me plus others, operating as a small team of consultants, perhaps, maybe bringing in other people from slightly wide of my specific area of expertise. So it could be that I bring in a paper specialist or a glass specialist, for instance, that might want to operate within the same sector. So we'll see. I just continually remain open-minded. I'm genuinely gobsmacked with where the business is 12 months. I mean, it's actually the business's first anniversary is at the end of May, so we're not actually a year into it. And it's surpassed my expectations, and it's not the business I thought it would be a year ago. So my expectations for the future is it won't be the same business again a year from now.
Yeah. An open plan for the business plan.
Yes, yeah. There is no plan.
Fantastic, Duncan. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, and I wish you
likewise
all the best for the future of the business.
Thank you.